Go.
Have you ever been walking through a store and felt the sudden presence of somebody standing behind you? As you turn your head quickly to see who it is, you see it's a store employee that greeted you when you first walked in. Most people might see this as a racial problem. However, the bigger picture behind it is the fact of racial profiling. What most people don't understand is that racial profiling not only affects the person being targeted, but the surrounding society. In an article written by CNN by Holly Ann, she states that racial profiling is becoming more dangerous than it is approving. Through my countless hours of research, I've learned not only what racial profiling is, a little bit of the history about it, and how it's affecting modern day society. Through the entirety of my speech, I will teach you about what it is, the history of it, and how it is affecting us today. On ACLU.com, they defined racial profiling as relying solely based on race, ethnicity, national origin, or religion to question someone. This can be very problematic though. If the person they're questioning truly is breaking the law, then they do have a plausible reason to stop them. However, if the person is simply walking through a store or walking down the street, they really have nothing against them to something that they're doing wrong. However, on the downside of defining racial profiling, you would also have to include discriminatory omissions to law enforcement officers as well. The definition of racial profiling can be very hard to define, but maybe a step through history can help clear it up a little bit more. According to an article on the Center for Crime and Justice Study, wrote by Rebecca Dessel, the term racial profiling dates back as early as slavery to the Jim Crow laws of the 1960s, and our most current understanding of it dates to the DEA in the 1980s. An online article by Connie Walker, criminal justice professor at Kean University, states that slavery forms as the earliest form of racial profiling. In the U.S., white superiors would not only target their slaves if they felt like something was wrong, but hire officials to do the same thing. At the same time, officials would break into people's homes if they thought that they housed a runaway slave. During the 1960s, during the civil rights movement, the Jim Crow laws were formed to create a separate but equal society. However, those separate but equal laws weren't very equal. Not only did they help improve other races, but they made inferior races feel like they didn't have anything. During the 1980s, the DEA, Drug Enforcement Agency, created a profile that law enforcement officials had to go by when they were seizing drugs. However, the downside to this is that their profiles were built based on the African American and the Latino races other than their Caucasian counterparts, even though they had no evidence proving who was more likely to transport drugs. Though this step of history just put a little counterface on the issue at hand, they're still facing many issues today. Because of the increase of racial profiling in everyday lives, we've also seen an increase in police shootings as well. With the increase of police shootings, statistics shows that no matter who it is, everybody's being targeted for no reason. Just because they're walking down the street or through a store. People are targeted daily based on their appearance or by the way that they are. People aren't able to express themselves freely anymore because of the fear of being in trouble for no reason. With the increase of police shootings in our nation, it has caused a lot of activist movements to become thoroughly through race, like the Black Lives Matter, are the All Lives Matter movements. I hope through the entirety of this speech you learned that racial profiling is targeted towards everyone. Not one person is solely affected by this. It affects the person, it affects the neighborhood, it affects the society, it affects the nation. Racial profiling is still an issue, and if we don't start acting now, it's never going to change. Through the entirety of my speech, I've taught you what racial profiling is, a step back in history to tell you a back face about it, and I've told you about the modern day issues that surround it. I hope you can take with this and let it expand your knowledge into what racial profiling is, and remember that only you can make the difference that this world needs. Thank you.